Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Simplifying Business Study. So children, this has been after a very long time I'm throwing this video. This is going to be the first video of chapter number 4 of your book, and the name of the chapter is Business Services. Basically, this chapter will be all about different services a business utilizes to run smoothly. We have already got a brief of this kind of topic in our previous chapters, uh, and we have studied auxiliaries or aids to trade. So these are all the services which we are going to include in this chapter, but we will include all of them in good detail. Let's quickly begin with our chapter. So very first thing we have to understand in this chapter is service sector. So we have already studied about auxiliaries or aids to trade. These aids to trade includes the service sector, basically includes all the commercial firms which are engaged in banking, communication, transport, insurance or warehousing. All these services help business to run smoothly. Business, what is business? Business means all the activities related to buying and selling of goods or services. So all these services basically facilitates business. These services are definitely indispensable and they are so essential for any business. Without them, no business can run smoothly. We have done many examples of these topics, and we will use further examples to understand all these topics. What are the examples of more business services around us? Like we have banking, insurance, transport, warehousing, advertisement, communication. So as I've just mentioned, a variety of services are generally available in market to meet changes of economy and the requirements of the investors. So the significance of service sector is gaining more momentum, and it had become the need of today's time to utilize these services very efficiently so that business can be taken care of smoothly. So let's first start with the features of these services, features or characteristics or nature of these services. So very first feature is that these are intangible. Intangible means that these services, these are their presence can only be felt. It cannot be seen or touched. So when we can only feel these services, or one can only experience them, there is no possibility that we can see them. We cannot find out the quality of the services before taking it. So one will only experience the quality once they are actually getting the experience of having those services. So supplier must try to offer good quality services to the customer so that they demand them again and again after experiencing them. Second point is no need for inventory. So we can say the main feature of service is that they are consumed and they are produced at the same time. Like goods, unlike goods, they cannot be produced and kept in a warehouse and then utilize it on some other point of time. They are produced and they are, you know, uh, used, they are experienced at the same time. So no inventory can be possible. No storage of any of the services cannot be possible. For example, there is an example like once you go to a salon, once the person is giving you the services, you are receiving the services at the same time. There is no point that he can, keep the service stored somewhere and then he can hand it over to you. So there is no inventory. There cannot be an inventory. Lack of homogeneity. Homogeneity means consistent, being consistent. That like no service can be same to two customers. Their choices are different, their preferences are different, their likes are different. So for example, once you're going to a salon, you will be treated in some other way and your friend will be treated in some other way. He will have some other haircut which suits him, and you will have some other haircut which suits you, your personality. So there cannot be homogeneity or there cannot be consistency in services. Next is non-transferability. So services cannot be separated from the provider of the services. Like when I'm teaching you all, this teaching cannot be separated from me. Once I am, a product can be taken care in a different way. If I have a factory and I produce these books or these pens which I'm using right away, they can be produced and they can be transferred to someone else. But teaching or my services which I'm providing you, it cannot be transferred to anyone, and then it cannot be rendered. So services cannot be separated from the provider. These are provided and consumed at the same place only. One more example, we cannot separate medical services provided by a doctor from the doctor. Doctor and his services are inseparable. Similarly, it applies to a lawyer, it applies to an accountant, it applies to a teacher. So everyone who is in service industry, it's applicable to all of them. Next is customer participation. To experience a service, the participation of the customer is essential. For example, when a doctor is treating someone, there has to be a patient. For the services to be rendered, there has to be someone who will consume those services. So customer participation is very important. Um, One more example, telephone companies provide telephone services, but to use these services, customer has to make or receive a call. So there has to be a customer available to utilize those services. So customer participation is a very, very important feature of services. Meaning of bank. Now the next thing here is the first service which we are going to study is bank or banking services. So what is bank basically? So bank is an institute which deals in money and credit. So basically it's one organization which is responsible for collecting deposits from public, and it supplies credit, thereby it facilitates certain kind of exchange. It also performs other functions like credit creation, agency function, general services. So bank is an organization basically which accepts deposits, lends money, and perform other agency functions. So in a simple language, if we, explain it, bank is an institution which attracts money on deposits for the purpose of being lent further to industry or to trade. So bankers are not merely money lenders. A bank lends what it borrows from other. So a bank is a buyer and seller of money, we can say. A bank earns the margin of the profit by lending the money which it borrows. For example, if you are an individual and you have a saving bank account at which you get 7% interest per annum, I think this is too much, but I am just assuming it. And the same bank lends that money to other people who needs money, and it takes 20% interest from them. So what it pays you 7%, and what it takes from other people to whom it lends money is 20%. So this 13% is the margin which is generally a profit earned by the bank. So this is how banks work. They accept deposit and then lends the same money. And definitely that money is also invested in stock exchange also, trade also, industry also. So it is put to best use through these banks. Okay, so this is bank. Now what is the role of bank? Bank definitely occupies a very, very important position in modern business world. So no country can make commercial and industrial progress without a well organized banking system. So banking system definitely plays a very, very important role in an economy. It circulates the money, it makes the money put to the best use, as I just said. So generally, we, the people who have, surplus money, we don't know how to utilize our money, how to put it to the best use. So best thing we know about, keeping our investment secure, keeping our money secure is like just going in a bank and having an account and just, creating an account and, keeping our money every month into that account. So, but that money doesn't, multiplies when it is kept in the bank account. It generally multiplies when it is put to productive uses, when it is put to industry, when it is put to production. So yes, banks generally are responsible for economic growth in a country. They are responsible for production. They are responsible for increasing GDP. They basically mobilize small savings and channelize them to the productive use. So this is the major and the most important role of bank. Now, what are different types of accounts we can have in a bank account? The first one is saving deposit account. So the person, generally we go ahead in a bank and we deposit a very small sum of money. We can withdraw this amount anytime when we need. Yes, there are certain restrictions like how many times we can go ahead and withdraw that money and how many times we can go and deposit money. So there are certain restrictions on that. So depositor is issued generally a checkbook, or nowadays he is issued an ATM card also along with the passbook. So all the amount deposited and withdrawn by the depositor is recorded in a passbook. Nowadays we have access to our, you know, um, e-banking services also. So we can get all these details without going to bank and without getting a passbook updated also. But generally passbook is one way to getting all the account details. When we get it updated, we get all the account details. Rate of interest on saving deposit account is generally lower than the fixed deposit. Next account is current deposit account. So current deposit account is opened by business people, businessmen. The account holder can deposit and withdraw money anytime. There is no restriction on the number and the amount of withdrawals. Withdrawals are always made through a check. Overdrafts and credit facility is also available on this kind of account. This account doesn't hold any kind of interest paid from bank. This is only for certain kind of and there are certain charges which banks charge from the account holder for providing all the services. So generally a statement is given to the account holder who needs details about his account. Now next is recurring deposit account. Recurring deposit means a depositor can deposit a fixed amount, let's say rupees 1000 every month for, let's say, 24 months. That means 2 years. So amount, when this time expires, this total amount, like in this case 24,000, along with the interest, is repaid on the maturity to the account holder. The rate of interest on recurring deposit is higher than saving bank account. Okay. Next is fixed deposit account. So what is fixed deposit account? A fixed deposit is generally repayable after the expiry of the certain period. So generally it varies from 6 months to 5 years. Longer the period of deposit, higher the rate of interest will be. So generally this is your deposit with the bank for a certain period of time. If this duration is more, your interest will be more. So there is basically a locking period during which you will not get your amount. But yes, there is always a case if there is an emergency, you will get that amount back from the bank. But in that case, bank will charge some kind of penalty and you will not get the amount as you were expecting. Okay, so rate of interest will be much less and there will be certain penalties also. Okay, so next is multiple option deposit account. So this account offers multiple options to depositors. This account can be the combination of saving or current account, or recurring or saving account. So this is an account where people can enjoy more benefits, more liquidity of this is how we can enjoy liquidity of a saving account and rate of interest of fixed deposit account. So when the amount is deposited exceeds a particular limit, then automatically that amount gets transferred into the fixed deposit account. So person can have accessibility to his amount anytime, unlike a fixed deposit account. But generally rate of interest is much higher, unlike a saving account. So it has benefits of both the accounts, saving and FD. Okay, so these were different kinds of accounts. Okay, now these are the services provided by the commercial banks. First one is bank draft. So this is basically a check drawn by one bank against the fund deposited to its account at another bank, and it is generally authorizing the second bank to make payment to the individual whose name is written on the draft. So basically it's a pay order. So whosoever name is written on um that paper, which we call bank draft, will be paid that amount by the bank. So it is a financial instrument through which money can be remitted from one person to another. A bank draft can be obtained from any bank by depositing the required amount in the bank. Bank generally charges something, to make this kind of document. So this is bank draft. Next is banker's check. Banker's check we call a pay order also. This is again a similar kind of document which instructs a bank to pay a certain sum to the third party. Such orders are normally acknowledged by bank, which provides a guarantee that the payment will be made. It is kind of bank draft which is payable within the town. So there is only one difference between bank draft and banker's check. Banker's check is payable in the same city, but bank draft can be payable to another city, a bank. That means it can be used for making payments to anyone who is outside the town also. So next is overdraft. So overdraft is generally a credit facility which is allowed, which is provided to the people who hold a current account in any bank. So one can overdraw that means one can withdraw amount which is not there in their bank account. He can, withdraw a little more than what is available in the in person's account, up to a certain limit definitely for an agreed period. Generally, the amount which is overdrawn is charged a certain interest on. So this is a facility which is given to the reputed customers through like which with which bank is having good and fruitful relationships over a long period of time. Next is cash credit. So this is one arrangement. The borrower is allowed to withdraw up to a certain limit against certain security. Okay, so in this case, certain security has to be deposited into the bank. Next is short, medium, or long-term loan. So a loan is generally a lump sum amount which is repayable on expiry of a specified period of time. It may be secured, it may be unsecured. So this loan can be paid back by the borrower in installments also. It can be paid in lump sum also. So it's as per the agreement, mutual agreement between the bank and the borrower. Next is different kinds of digital payments or electronic functions of bank or e-banking. So what is e-banking? Basically, when banks make available all its services on different electronic platforms, it is called e-banking. So when you are able to utilize all the services provided by the bank on certain electronic sources, you are utilizing e-banking. So digital electronic payment is a system of making online payment without involving physical exchange of money. So money is transferred from an account of the payer to the account of the receiver using internet. What are different kinds of different methods of digital payments? It is yes, it is NEFT, ATM, debit card, credit card, RTGS, e-cash, digital cash. I'll explain all of them very briefly. So what is NEFT? Let's first understand that. What is NEFT? So NEFT stands for National Electronic Fund Transfer. Under this system, the fund is directly transferred from one person's account to another. Direct transfer help both the parties from inconvenience of drawing check, depositing checks, and lot of time also which takes place. So key difference between NEFT. Okay, I'll explain the difference between NEFT and RTGS later. Okay, so minimum transaction value, There is no minimum value for NEFT, but yes, there are certain restrictions with RTGS. We will explain about that later. Okay, now what is ATM? ATM is automated teller machine. We all know about it. The person who makes payment and accepts deposits in a bank is known as teller. So ATM refers to the mechanical and automatic teller which can do the teller's job 24 hours a day at less than half of the cost of human tellers. Okay, so that is why I think no one has ever told you what this teller means. So, to use an ATM, you have to have that ATM card, a plastic card, which is provided to you by your bank when you open a saving account into your bank. So this card generally has all your credentials into it, and it has your identification code. If the code matches, the machine responds by giving you like whatever details you need or cash you need. So this is how ATM works. Now next is debit card. What is debit card? Debit card is a facility which is utilized once you go to an ATM to withdraw any kind of money. So debit card is a facility offered to all the account holders who make payment up to the amount of credit balance in their account. Generally, the point of sale terminals are located which are electronically tied to the bank computer. So when the customer presents the debit cards, the point of sale terminal automatically transfers money to the customer's bank account, and this can be utilized to withdraw cash, to make online payments, to make to do online shopping, and any kind of things what we can do right now using our debit card. Now next is credit card. So credit card is exactly like a debit card. It's a plastic card. It's basically for the amount which is not there in your bank account. This is not your own amount, but this is a credit which is provided to you by your bank. So once you hold an account for a long period of time in a bank, they provide you certain kind of credit facility through a credit card. That means, for example, if a person is holding an account and he's maintaining a balance of rupees 20,000 always in his bank account, so his bank may have provided him a credit card with the limit of rupees 10,000. So that means if the person utilizes this credit for any kind of purchasing, any kind of shopping, the person will be charged certain interest, and that amount he will pay in certain installment to the bank. So this is how credit card works. Now next is RTGS. So what is RTGS? RTGS, the full form of RTGS is real time gross settlement. So RTGS is a system where transfer of money or securities takes place from one bank to another bank on a real time and on gross basis. So settlement in real time means payment transaction is not subjected to any waiting period. That means the transaction is settled as soon as they are processed. Okay, there is certain waiting time in NEFT, but it is not there in RTGS. So the transactions are settled as soon as they are processed, as I just said. So gross settlement means transaction is settled on one-to-one basis without bunching or netting them with other transactions. So once they are processed, payments are final and irrevocable, irreversible. Okay, so RTGS has certain mandates. Minimum transaction value for RTGS is rupees 2 lakh, whereas there is no minimum value for NEFT. RTGS facilities are available over, 72,000 branches, whereas NEFT in India is available in 75,000 branches of bank. Okay, few more features of RTGS. As I just said, minimum value is 2 lakh. Payment is final and irreversible. Fees of RTGS varies from different banks, vary from bank to bank. And use of RTGS, to use RTGS, the bank must use core banking. Core banking, that means all the banks are connected. If one transaction is taking place at one place, it must, it must be visible at any other branch similarly at the same time. So this is RTGS. Now next, last one under this category is e-cash or digital cash. So it's the concept of online payment system. It's exactly like your wallet, but it is over an electronic portal. For example, there are a lot of e-cash or digital cash portals. Paytm is one of the most common ones. Like how is it used? You all know that, but still I would like to explain you. Um like for example, you have transferred rupees 1000 in your digital wallet, in your e-cash or your digital cash wallet. This is the amount which will be available there until unless you will utilize it in any, any kind of shopping or any kind of payment over electronic means. So this is one kind of wallet or one your cash available on any electronic medium. So using e-cash, what is the utility of using e-cash or digital cash? It makes our transaction really fast. You don't need to put all the details of your credit card or your debit card or your e business credentials over different platforms. So you can just utilize your e-cash, which is available in an e-wallet at any if any any means where you want to utilize it, like for shopping or for payment of any kind of bills. So it provides much utility. Now, second thing under this category, under this chapter, is insurance. So, insurance, what is insurance? Insurance is basically a contract. It's a legal contract between two people. One who is taking an insurance and one who is giving an insurance. The one who is giving an insurance, one who is taking an insurance is called insured. And the company who is providing the person an insurance is called the insurer. So this insurer and insured, they have a contract between each other. And what is this contract? The insurer agrees to make good the loss of the insured on happening of an event. That means the insurer promises that he will make a loss good. That means he will cover a certain loss up to a certain period of time and up to a certain amount if it is happened due to the given cause. Okay, and why do they do that? Because they are getting regular payment from the insured, which we call premium. Okay, so by paying this premium regularly to the insurer, one can secure themselves from a certain happening or a certain loss which can happen to them, and uh, which can affect the person economically, uh, and to make that loss good, this is a kind of provision. Okay, so I hope I have tried to make myself clear what insurance is. Now, what are the importance points of importance of insurance? So insurance provides protection, absolutely. It gives the person a kind of protection. It gives a person a kind of security. When I know that I have a medical insurance, I feel secure during this time of corona also, right? It's a distribution of risk. Someone is there to share our risk. If something happens to me and if I have a life insurance, that means someone will be taking care of all my economic, all the economic problems my family may face after, something happens to me. There is competitiveness. That means there is a kind of competition there. That means you have lot of options, you have lot of provisions out of which you can choose what is best for your particular need. specialization. So there are different kinds of insurance which specializes in their areas. You can have an accidental insurance, and under accident also you can have a fire insurance for any kind of mishappening, for any kind of there are different kind of specialization in all areas of insurance. So insurance helps us to utilize these resources, our resources, effectively. So once we put money into something, it is definitely uh, putting investment companies. It is always put to best use by these insurance companies also. Yes, it is providing social welfare if someone is making your loss good by a payment of a very small amount called premium. It is definitely something related to helping someone in need. So it is encouraging social welfare. And yes, once you derive certain amount and you put it to use, and you do it regularly, it inculcates saving habits, and in return it you know gives the country a huge capital formation. So these are the points of importance of insurance. Now these are the principles of insurance. So the first principle of insurance is principle of utmost good faith. So this is one principle which says that insurance is a contract based on faith. So the insured and the insurer must disclose all the material facts to each other, and both parties should not hide any facts related to insurance policy from each other. If someone hides any material fact from each other, later on there can be certain consequences which are not good for them. Next is principle of insurable interest. Principle of insurable interest states that insured must have certain insurable interest or economic interest in the subject matter of insurance policy. So without any interest, without interest taking an insurance policy will be a gamble or a fraudulent activity. So law will not permit this. In case of life insurance, insurable interest does not uh, comes with the relationship of insured with the person taking the insurance policy. So next is principle of indemnity. According to this principle, insurance is not a contract of making any kind of profit. The purpose of insurance is to bring back the person who has taken the insurance at the same financial position which he was having before a loss occurred to him. In any case, he will not be able to make any kind of profit from the insurance company. Next is principle of contribution. The principle of contribution is states that if a person has taken more than one policy for the same subject matter, then all the insurers will contribute the amount of loss and compensate him for the actual amount of loss only. And how will they do that? In the ratio the person has taken the insurance, he will be paid claim in the same ratio by both or by all the insurers. Now next is principle of subrogation. Principle of subrogation states that after paying the compensation, the insurer steps into the shoes of the insured. In other words, when the insured is compensated for the loss or damage to the property insured by him or her, the right of ownership of such damaged property passes on to the insured. That means once he has received the claim for the damaged property will not, he will not own the damaged property once he have received the claim for that property. That will belong to the insurer. Principle of causa proxima. According to this principle, the cause or the reason or for the loss must be related to the subject matter of the insurance contract. If the loss is due to some other cause, absolutely different cause, the insurer can deny to pay for the compensation. Next one is principle of mitigation of loss. That means this principle states that the insured must take necessary steps to minimize the loss. That means he must try his level best to minimize the loss. Like for example, if someone has taken fire insurance, I mean, if fire is broken, then he must make all the efforts to minimize the fire. He cannot just stand and see the house burning because he has taken an insurance. This is principle of mitigation of loss. So children, these were the principles, and I hope these were understood to all of you. I So children, we have reached the end of this particular session. I hope my content is useful to all of you, and if you really liked it, do like it and drop a comment in the comment box if you have any queries. Hope you had a good day. Hope you had a good time watching my video. Thank you so much.